Okay, so these lovely people we're going to talk about creating climate communities with. Michael Washington is the founder of USOL Project, which is a company that allows people in Southern California to meet up and connect with nature and focuses on wellness and connecting ourselves to the beautiful land we live on. And Deandra is a co-founder and the executive director of Intersectional Environmentalists, which is an incredible company that is working to increase media literacy and environmental literacy through storytelling. So I'm so excited to be talking to you both today. We are going to focus specifically on creating climate communities, which is something that you've both done so incredibly well. I wanted to ask you to begin with on what sparked you to begin building IE and USOL, and why you chose to start forging those connections online, Deandra, versus in person, Michael.
Sure. I'll start. Hi, guys. So yeah, in person was important to me. Obviously, I think the online aspect is also important, but I think there was a combination. Basically, to answer your question, I was the consumer that I was looking to reach for the company, so it's quite easy to be someone who felt like there was a lack of kind of representation as far as the type of events I was looking to learn and get into, and looking for those avenues for education were hard in real life. And because I wanted to find not only how to do something, but build community around it and find others that did it. Being, getting into my late 20s and realizing that, I kind of want to meet people in a more, I don't know, how do I say this, just not at the bar and kind of way. And this big city where we're so spread out and we're in pods all day from our home to our car, it's not really set up for those kind of chance connections as other big cities are, and it made it even harder to find kind of new friends in spaces that I really wanted to grow into. And so the idea was for myself, but really I just wanted that for myself. And then, and I think prioritizing in real life events as the world is kind of feels sometimes dystopian and continues to kind of feel scary at times. I think really when I look at the people around me, not only does that feel like what wealth to me, like, or what I think wealth is, yeah, like real people. And I think when you talk about the word community, which I'm sure will be a big part of this talk, I hope it always centers around just real people showing up for no strings attached reasons. That is to me what community means.
Deandra, what about you?
Yeah, no, I think the in-person aspect is so important. And if anything, I think that what we started with IE was to that end, right? Is how can we shift narratives virtually to help people connect more meaningfully in person? Because ultimately that's what we need at the community building level. And what role can the digital landscape play in that? And so rewind, it's summer of 2020. The murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many other Black community members have just happened, and our founder, Leah Thomas, released a definition of intersectional environmentalism, basically making this huge case for how the heck are we all marching for polar bears and salmon, but we're not marching for Black lives? What's happening in the environmental space? So it was this huge call out of the environmental landscape and the environmental community. And I think that from that, what became very clear for me, my co-founders, and really just like our friends, our community members that saw the need to shift the environmental movement the way that we saw it, it was very clear that, one, the retail space and like brand storytelling and marketing, which are community builders, they are vehicles for community building, had really engineered this super exclusive, white, affluent impression of who an environmentalist is. And so I think that as IE was starting to grow and we were really grateful for our huge community, it was this really important moment in time. Again, thinking about the USOLs of the world, right? It was this really important moment in time to say, hey, we need to make sure that people know that there is community out there for them. And beyond that, we need to make sure that people know that their cultural backgrounds have environmental legacies worth celebrating. And it's not just that they deserve to be included, in fact, their cultural backgrounds probably are the blueprint. And we've mentioned that in a couple of the panels today. And so I turned a really crappy Squarespace blog, shout out to Squarespace, that no one was reading, I took this format, these like digital downloads that were really representative of different people, diverse peoples in different contexts and different topics, and turned that into the IE website. Because I didn't want anybody to read that blog. So we redid the website and we launched that along with the growing Instagram platform. And it was wild because a lot of the people on the team have retail backgrounds, and this was a time when we were hearing brands literally say things to us like, well, we want to diversify who we work with, but Latinos don't kayak. Black people don't hike. And we were like, what? So it was the cringiest time to be pushing up against the barriers that have been prevalent in the outdoor industry. But building that website, sharing the stories on our Instagram platform became this immediate showcase of evidence that you cannot say that anymore, right? The proof is here. We have all been here. And so really the birth of the digital community IE was very rooted in highlighting people who have been doing incredible work in the context of so many different spaces, tech, agriculture, beauty, fashion, whatever it may be, and doing so from the lens of sustainability, doing so from the lens of culture and identity. And so, yeah, I think that it just was a powerful moment that kind of broke the environmental movement a little bit, and it helped us to pick all the pieces back up and start shaping an environmental space that was more intersectional.
Completely. I think there's a really big power in social media as a tool to share lived experience and break the mainstream narratives that we're being told, because now the individuals that normally are not in front of a screen and in front of an audience are able to showcase what's happening really in their lives and not what mainstream marketing might want to share with them. So you guys have done incredible work at Intersectional Environmentalist and USOL, and it's been incredible to watch you guys both grow and to watch you build your communities over the years. And I'm interested for you how your communities have grown over time, and how have you preserved connection as you continue to expand, and your audiences, I'm sure, are changing with you.
Sure, I'll go. So it's been interesting because we've been around for almost 2 years now, and we're still very much ingrained in being a place for people who have never had an opportunity to try something. So be it like an intro to fly fishing workshop or class, which is one of our most popular things to do. And you know, what's so beautiful about fly fishing also is what makes it so hard to get into, is that it's such a passed down from generation to generation thing. It's a kind of if you know kind of thing. And so like when you're thinking about, well, why is it so non-diverse? It's because it's passed down from generation to generation. It's in the bloodline stays kind of where it is. And so those classes, those types of workshops, whether it's like a foraging or hike or plant identification, people are extremely interested to get into these things, but they just never had a chance to do it. So yeah, I think like as far as being a place where people who are brand new to never doing it, we've been really good at that and continue to be. So our community is growing wildly. And something now that's really interesting to me is something I tell some of the people I work with is how do we water the plants that are already there is kind of like the term that we use. So doing things for the people that maybe have quote unquote graduated from maybe those intro level classes while still being able to be a place for people that have never started something, but that maybe after they had the surf lesson, where's the surf trip? Or maybe after they did the fly fishing, how can they connect deeper? And try to just create new lanes, which is something this year specifically I'm really trying to do, and continue to kind of create that interconnective glue amongst people who, and not really necessarily in a way of a class or ticketed format either. So every month we'll do camp trips that are just geared towards our guides. So our guides are like our North Stars. They're kind of like, I would say, our leaders as far as, you know, the community leaders that we want to be the front-facing thing between people that are coming to the events and who they imagine and understand USAL to be. And a lot of times these guides don't get to kind of like connect to each other as much. So getting our fly fishing guide, our surfing guide, our climbing guide together to like talk and interact and do that over maybe a 2-day camp trip to Joshua Tree and doing stuff like that now, where maybe it was something I didn't nearly understand how important it was starting out, and maybe just being more focused on maybe the business of it. But really, any business opportunity or financial revenue stream is going to come down to the fact that there are people that are really, I guess there's real community there, and I guess we can continue talking, or we'll get to that definition. But again, just back to like putting energy, our financial and everything into just purely creating a space for people to connect, and allowing that to be the root to like the tree that we're trying to grow, so that they can go out there and do the events and lead those things, and have fun with it.
Yeah, I love it. Deandra, what about you?
I took a surfing class. I stood up.
I saw pics.
I stood up. I was proud of myself. Yes, community building. Wait, remind me of the question.
The question is,
it's been a
how
long
did
day,
your
y'all.
communities grow over time, and how have you preserved the connection as you have changed and your community has changed with you?
Yes. Okay. So growing our community, I think, goes back to the way that we launched that showcase that I mentioned. I think so. In IE's first year, we launched with a founding council, and the website, I think, in and of itself was a great community builder, because we had all these different topics, we had all these different showcases within them of leaders that you can follow, so that if you have a particular career path that you admire, if you have a particular hobby, you can go to that page, tech, engineering, beauty, fashion, and then you can see community. And that was a community building mechanism. But we also had a founding council that not only really supported that evidence, right, that showcase that we were all collectively trying to come together and feel seen and heard through, but that founding council was also able to help inform how we even shaped and grew IE. And that was a huge form of community building as well that I think brands and businesses often take for granted. I feel like you could speak on that too. It's oftentimes when brands or companies are seeking community, or they're seeking to grow their community, they're really conflating that with, I think what you say is they're conflating that with customers, which I think is really powerful to level set within the inside of your teams. And with our council members, it ended up being more of a reciprocal relationship, where many of them were helping us in areas that they felt empowered to help us. So we had council members that were helping us really understand how we could engage meaningfully in brand partnerships, because everybody wanted a piece of the IE Instagram account. So how do we draw valuable boundaries around that while still inviting people to support what we were doing? And so we had council members that were guiding us through that. We had council members that were guiding us through what it could mean to engage with the White House when the White House was interested in adopting intersectional environmentalism. So we had all these different council members, and in return, they felt empowered to share the long history of work and knowledge that they have with the IE community. So I think engaging in long-term reciprocity, where you're finding mutual benefit and mutual respect in each other's capacities and each other's knowledge bases, is really, really powerful, as opposed to something that feels limited and transactional.
Completely. And you were talking about how a lot of times brands don't see their audience as a community, they see them as customers. And that is a very good transition into the last thing I wanted to ask you guys tonight. We've talked a lot about sustainable companies, about brands, and this is a bit of a meta question as someone who represents on social media a brand. I'm a brand account. I'm the person behind Commons. And I also do consulting for brands occasionally on social media. And I hear and see a lot that brands are interested in building a community, but they don't really know how, and they don't necessarily always approach it the right way. So I wanted to finish out our conversation by asking you, what is the role that brands and companies can play in building climate communities?
Yeah, I mean, I think we talked about that question internally earlier, just on our own. And I think for us, it's the easiest answer is for them to have a finger on the pulse to be able to connect to communities that are actually just about that work. Because at the end of the day, which isn't really a terrible thing, but their main goal is going to be, there's going to be a KPI like kind of attached to, there needs to be some kind of exchange, and usually that is a transactional exchange. But how can they invest in a community to where customers are like, you know what, like I like you because you're giving a pedestal to something that I also like deeply appreciate, and you have your finger on a pulse to know enough that what they're doing is important, and giving them the mic and like ability and some financial to do something interesting within the confines of your platform would mean something to me, and would make me feel like that company actually knows what they're doing, rather than them trying to act like they're building a community. You know what I mean? So I think it's tough if you're a business to build community. I mean, I think even for me, trying to navigate what that means, our ethos is accessibility, and that means all of our prices to our classes are wildly cheaper than what most are in this kind of the nature, wellness, experiential space. So it's not, financially maybe viable over time. So how can, I'm dealing with the fact of how do we essentially not make what our ethos is our main financial revenue stream, because then I would just be just like the companies that I'm talking about. Eventually I'd hit a wall where I'd have to like ask for, more than I'd want to. So it's tough. I get how tough it is, but I think the best thing for companies to do is to invest their time and energy in approaching the right communities, not as a transactional approach, but more like, how can we build with you? How can we like give you space to then, do more than just maybe a one-off event, a one-off thing here. You give us the Instagram photos and then you're out and we never talk again, which happens quite like often. How can we, do more impactful things that really like lead to better storytelling once we have a better relationship and we have a better community? Our community starts to understand your brand more than just like a one-off scenario. So I think all those things would be great options.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that working with brands, so I launched, back in 2020, I launched a consulting arm for IE that a lot of people don't really see present or obviously on, say, like our social media. And working with some of the clients that we've worked with over the past few years, we've learned that a huge goal of some of the clients that are largely around community building and communications and storytelling. And what I'm finding is that teams want to oftentimes just throw money at building out a new CSR team, or they want to build out a new head of social impact, or they want to, right? Like you want to just grow and really absorb things in-house, right? You talked about that too. You talked about like, you want to find the person that you think can do the thing and then just like absorb them in. And that's not always the answer. And 9 times out of 10, I find that it's not the answer. I think when it comes to community building, it's really about recognizing that you don't necessarily have to, and capitalism teaches us this, right? I think traditional business settings teach us, like we have to have our own secret sauce. And that is so antithetical to building community. We really have to embrace shared values in community and work together. And I think that's why it's really beautiful that there are a lot of brands that are working really hard to build strategic partnerships with people that are doing really incredible aligned work, and doing so in a long-term way that is really allowing relationships to be built, allowing brands to move with the community at the speed of trust, as opposed to just coming in, wham, bam, thank you, transactional moment. And so, yeah, I think it's really important that brands don't just throw money at building out their social impact teams, but hire, if you do want to have somebody that's going to facilitate that, hire really effective facilitators, not necessarily marketing experts or storytelling experts. If really your goal is to tell community stories, you need somebody who is an excellent facilitator of community so that you can continually work with community. And I bet you it'll probably even be cheaper than having 5 to 10 full-time staff members that are twiddling their thumbs in the office. Like that's, if they're not the people coming from the communities that you want to work with, then they're probably not the people you need to hire. You should hire really effective facilitators that can build those relationships between your company and grassroots efforts or local folks that are really mobilizing their community, and do not absorb them. Don't seek to absorb them within the walls of your brand, because then you taint who they are and what they do. So you really just need to focus on being effective partners.
What a great answer to end our night out. Wonderful advice. Thank you guys both for being here, and thank you all for coming to listen. I'm going to ask over here. Okay, our MC is going to come and finish the night off for you guys. Thank you all so much
Thank
for
you.
attending.